Greetings friends, you're on Ruslan Belov's channel, and today we'll examine in detail the current situation in Ukraine as of December 2nd, 2025. So let's move directly to the front line and look at what the Chief of the General Staff said and what statements were made during the meeting with the President of the Russian Federation. Let's start with the Zaporizhzhia direction. Let me remind you once again. According to the latest report presented at the meeting, the city of Stepnohirsk was completely encircled by Russian units. Today, various mapping services have already made the corresponding corrections. That is, based on the words of the Chief of the General Staff voiced at the meeting, as well as taking into account the latest map updates, we can confidently say that Ukrainian forces are managing to hold only a few buildings within the Stepnohirsk citadel. Meanwhile, Ukrainian sources are publishing this video material. In these frames, we observe attacks by Russian units with drones striking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the western part of the Stepnohirsk citadel. Taking into account everything said in the latest report, we made corresponding corrections on the map. If yesterday the correction concerned the northern side of Stepnohirsk, where peculiar pincers were marked encircling the citadel, today it becomes absolutely clear. Ukrainian forces will not be able to hold Stepnohirsk. In the coming days, they will most likely have to leave this settlement if they still have such an opportunity. Now we move to the eastern Zaporizhzhia direction. 3 important messages came from here today. The first was also voiced at yesterday's meeting. According to the report, Russian units began clearing Lyman. Fighting is already ongoing in the northeastern and eastern districts of the settlement. The Russian army is actively advancing, and this data is confirmed by practically all sources, both pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian, as well as neutral ones. In addition, today came confirmation of another statement made at the meeting. Yesterday it was reported that Russian units completely cleared the settlement of Zaporizhzhia, located along the P85 highway, which previously played a key role in logistics between Pokrovsk and Lyman. At present, most of the P85 is under the control of Russian forces, and units continue to advance south toward Pavlivka. This data was reported yesterday, and today pro-Russian sources from the eastern group of forces published video material demonstrating the course of fighting for this small village along the Hychul River. In the first seconds of the clip, you can see the fortifications that the Ukrainian army built to contain the advance of Russian forces. However, judging by these frames, these defensive lines could not stop the Russian offensive. In the final moments of the video, dense fog can be seen enveloping Zaporizhzhia, through which Russian tricolors emerge. Russian fighters raised the flag at several points in the settlement, which unequivocally confirms that Zaporizhzhia came under the control of Russian units, which continue to advance further, both to the south and, probably, will attempt to force across the Hychul to consolidate on the opposite bank. From early morning, reports also came that the settlement of Zeleny High came under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. A corresponding video was published, although yesterday at the meeting this settlement was not mentioned. Probably the clearing was completed only this morning, and the video was added as a supplement to materials about Zaporizhzhia. The footage also shows thick fog covering the entire territory, and again, Russian tricolors raised in the western and eastern parts of the village. Based on this information, corresponding corrections were made. Now let's look at how the map has changed over the past day. This is how it looked just yesterday, December 1st, 2025. And today massive updates were made. The Russian army has come even closer to complete clearing of Lyman. Moving to the Pavlivka direction, here there is also some information voiced at the meeting. The direction was designated quite reservedly. According to the speakers, fighting for Pavlivka continues. There were no statements that the settlement is almost cleared or about to be taken, just a dry statement of fact. Combat operations continue. However, today we made a correction regarding Ivanka. Let me remind you that several days ago, Ukrainian sources claimed complete restoration of control over Ivanka, and that Russian units were forced to withdraw south of the Volga River. Today, some neutral mapping services also confirmed this information. For now, we're marking the territory in grey, showing that Ivanka is completely hidden by the fog of war. We're waiting for additional data and geolocations. In fact, Ivanka was and remains a key settlement, since it's located practically on a direct line to Pavlivka. Loss of the bridgehead in the Ivanivka area could play a negative role in the future. Now we move toward Pokrovsk. Important and revealing news is coming from here today. Let's start directly with Pokrovsk itself. At yesterday's meeting, as well as in the fresh report, complete clearing of the city was confirmed. In the published footage, you can see Russian soldiers raising the Russian tricolor at the administration building. Many situations arose around this video, even frankly comical ones. All day today, a clip distributed by the Ukrainian side has been actively discussed. Let's examine what exactly happened. This is the original video filmed by Russian units and pro-Russian sources. In the frames, 2 Russian fighters are raising the flag in the central part of Pokrovsk, directly in front of the administrative building. This video was used by Russian sources, including the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff, as one of the proofs of complete control over the city. This morning, Russian sources publish another clip showing the raising of flags in various parts of Pokrovsk. For example, here fighters raised the tricolor at the northwestern entrance to the city. There are many such episodes in the material, and there are all geographic references, creating a complete picture of full control of the city. But as you understand, this caused a kind of zrada, as is now often said. Ukrainian sources posted a clip in which, using a neural network, the original Russian footage was simply altered. Russian soldiers were replaced with Ukrainian ones, the Russian flag, with a Ukrainian one. This clip was officially published by the 425th Assault Regiment Skala, where it was claimed that Pokrovsk was allegedly cleared by Ukrainian forces. But since the video is completely neural network generated, it has many artifacts. For example, in the upper right corner, the Ukrainian neural network drew a car, although in the original it was an element of a building's roof. The neural network perceived the roof as a car and displayed an entire traffic jam, as if the action was taking place several years ago in the middle of a bustling city. Today, this attempt is being actively mocked even by Ukrainian sources. Many write that such fakes are shameful to even discuss. In addition, it's already obvious that even the map you see before you, which generally corresponds to most mapping services, no longer reflects reality. Ukrainian sources are analyzing new video materials in open and closed groups and recording the presence of Russian units significantly north of the previous boundaries of Pokrovsk. Here's one point, here's another. That is, the entire territory south of Olympijska Street is most likely already confidently controlled by Russian military. Now about Northward and Dmitrov. Yesterday at the meeting, information was voiced that the southern part of the city was completely cleared. For now, we're thinking whether to make corrections now or wait for confirmations. But if we rely on the Chief of the General Staff's report, we have grounds to mark changes at least in the southern part. In the territory of Northward, according to statements, about 2,000 Ukrainian servicemen remain. Let me remind you, when Putin announced the encirclement at the beginning of November, about 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers were in the Pokrovsk-Northward agglomeration. Now, a month later, only 2,000 remain. This means that approximately 3,000 Ukrainian fighters were either destroyed or managed to break out of the encirclement. But those 2,000 who remain now no longer have the opportunity to leave the area. The ring of encirclement has completely closed. We move slightly north, to the Dobropilya direction. After the completion of the Ukrainian counter-offensive, Russian troops themselves went on the counterattack and are now actively advancing toward Belitska and Dobropilya, gradually returning positions lost during fighting from late August to late October. Today, data is coming in about attempts to straighten the front line along the section Rodinske-Zaporizhzhia Dorozhny. Russian units are confidently expanding control along the railway, effectively bringing Belitska to semi-encirclement. Therefore, in the near future, clashes can be expected inside the settlement itself. Also, Russian forces, judging by updates on a number of mapping resources, continue to improve their positions in the Sofiivka area. Everything indicates that soon Ukrainian troops will have to withdraw from here as well. Overall, on the Pokrovsk direction, the situation is developing extremely unfavorably for Ukrainian units. Now we move to the Kostiantynivka section, from which much significant information is coming. Let me remind you, yesterday the Ministry of Defense announced the clearing of Klenov, but 2 days later, no confirmations have appeared. Moreover, pro-Russian cartographers treated this message with noticeable doubt. There are still no changes on the maps. It's too early to draw final conclusions. We're waiting for clarifications. Meanwhile, the storming of Kostiantynivka continues. Yesterday at the meeting, it was announced that Russian troops control about 30% of the city. But if you look at current maps, such figures are not visually confirmed, which may mean one thing: the map available in the public domain is already outdated, and the real zones of control have advanced significantly further, up to the western quarters. Today, a new correction came, regarding the southeastern part of the city. In published footage, the 104th Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is shown striking positions of Russian forces. All buildings in the video were geolocated, after which a clarification was made on the map for this sector. It's also important to recall that the commander of the southern group stated earlier, by December 15th, the main part of Kostiantynivka should be completely cleared. If on December 1st through 2nd we were talking about 30%, then approximately the same amount remains to complete the assigned task. Now we move towards Siversk and Lyman. According to reports voiced at the meeting, Russian units are clearing up to 100 structures daily in Siversk. The pace is not the highest. It was previously reported that at that time, 1,700 buildings out of 8,000 had been cleared, and about 2 weeks have passed since then. Based on this, the number of cleared objects probably reached about 3,000. 5,000 remain, and at the current pace, fighting for Siversk will last at least a month. Full control here is unlikely to be achieved by the end of the year, although with a sudden collapse of defense, the situation could change at any moment. Fighting continues in the Lyman area as well. Map corrections have been noted in the zones of Oziern and Dibrova. It's reported that Russian troops have already entered Lyman from the eastern side. On the Kupiansk direction, its own news. According to meeting data, Russian units have blocked up to 15 Ukrainian battalions that have no opportunity to cross the Oskil River and reach their own bank. In the northeastern part of Kharkiv region, key events are unfolding around Vovchansk and Vilcha. Yesterday at the meeting, it was reported that Vovchansk was completely cleared, and today the Ministry of Defense confirmed this. An interesting nuance. Earlier, Ukrainian units shot down the Russian flag in the southern part, probably trying to disrupt the publication of official video material about complete clearing. Today, confirmation was voiced, but the video was never published, which indirectly indicates a successful attempt to shoot down the flags. However, if the clearing is indeed complete, the video will appear anyway. It's just a matter of time. Overall, across the entire front line, the position of the armed forces of Ukraine remains extremely difficult. And all this is happening against the backdrop of Vitkov's visit to Russia. He arrived in the country and headed for a meeting with Vladimir Putin, scheduled for 1700 hours. At the time of preparing the material, there were no results. Perhaps when you're watching this video, there's already some information about agreements reached. It's reported that Vitkov brought a generalized version of the plan, coordinated with Kiev and, probably partially, through Kyiv with the EU. Now the decision rests with the Russian president, whether to accept it or not. At the same time, Moscow has already made it clear that it's ready to discuss any proposals from the West, but only on the condition that the key goals of the special military operation are fulfilled, whether by military means or diplomatically. That is, in any case, the Russian side will most likely make its corrections. And even if the plan is accepted as a basis, this does not at all mean an immediate cessation of hostilities. Meanwhile, in Kiev today, events are boiling. Ambassador to Great Britain Valery Zaluzhny unexpectedly returned to the capital of Ukraine. While Zelensky was in France, Zaluzhny arrived in Kiev, possibly to prepare for the future presidential campaign of 2026. Zelensky, meanwhile, held a meeting with Macron in Paris, trying to secure support and possibly obtain personal guarantees. From Macron's statements, an important conclusion can be drawn. If Russia rejects the peace plan and hostilities continue at the previous pace, then France hinted at the possibility of striking the entire Russian shadow fleet. Today, information came that another Russian tanker was damaged or destroyed off the coast of Turkey. Erdogan expressed dissatisfaction and stated that the destruction of vessels in his waters is a violation of his exclusive rights. However, judging by the reaction, at this stage, no one intends to take Ankara's remarks into account. Macron made it clear, if the war continues, Russia will feel serious financial difficulties in the coming months, including due to the destruction of commercial vessels, which will be extremely difficult to confirm legally. And responsibility will most likely be placed on Ukrainian intelligence services, even if they have no direct relation to this. After Paris, Zelensky went to Ireland, trying literally for a few minutes to intercept Vitkov to coordinate details and possibly pass him a personal message for Putin. Meanwhile, Germany stated that Ukraine will in any case have to make very difficult decisions, up to holding a referendum on issues of territorial integrity. Even if Kyiv and Moscow accept Trump's plan as a basis, full settlement will require at least a year. Elections, referendums, consolidation of decisions, legal procedures. Over this year, the situation could change many times, up to the breakdown of any agreements and the resumption of full-scale fighting. And considering that several Russian vessels have been destroyed in recent days, it's quite possible that over the next year, the entire Shadow Fleet will come under attack. And how exactly events will develop further is impossible to predict. That's all, friends. Thank you for staying with us. Subscribe, like, and take care of yourselves.